of Three True Values. I'm your host, James Fletcher, and we are back once again here with some off-season coverage for you all. We have taken a little bit of a break here over the last couple of weeks, had some traveling going on, obviously some basketball to watch, and now we are going to be joined in the second segment by Rivals Jamie Shaw. Once again, we've talked to him about the NBA draft. We've talked about the 2025 class, the 2026 class for NBA draft. Now it's time to talk about Peach Jam. That is now in the rear view mirror. Brad Beal Elite takes home the trophy at the end of it all in the 17U category. JJ Andrews is your MVP of Summer League again in that 17U division. AJ Williams brings home the MVP in the 15U category. He is, of course, in the 2028 class, which we're just now starting to get a little bit more info on. So, throughout the course of today's show, we're going to walk you through some of the players that we have seen in the past week. How did they look different than they have over the course of their recruiting process? Who was the big risers? Did anyone fall just a little bit? We'll talk you through all the players you need to know in this class and a couple of recruiting classes that are upcoming. So stick right here in this second segment. We will be right back with Jamie Shaw breaking down all things you need to know from Peach Jam right here on Three True Values. Welcome back in. We have Jamie Shaw from Rivals here today to break down all things Peach Jam for us. A lot to break down. I mean, it is a long event there in Augusta, I believe North Augusta, right? Trying to,
Yep. Yeah.
yeah,
North
North
Augusta.
Augusta,
The gyms in North Augusta. Most people stay in Augusta. Same
right
city
across that
technically,
state
different
line.
state.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll talk through everything that happened there at Peach Jam with our recruiting expert. He has seen these guys for a long time. He's the one who's moving them up and moving them down for us. So I want to start here just to intro us. We got to talk about the Peach Jam MVP, JJ Andrews,
Mhm.
because he had a big week. And this is a guy who, a little bit of polarizing of a prospect, depending on who you talk to about him. But there's no doubt that this week was a big one for him, right?
For sure. I think the polarization within JJ comes his long term outlook. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
anybody you talk to currently denounces the absolute immense production he puts forth every time he steps on the floor. Um, JJ, he's the son of an offensive lineman, Sean Andrews, played at Arkansas, drafted to go to the NFL. He's every bit. He was measured USA basketball 6'4" with a 7 foot wingspan. He's an aggressive downhill guy. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you look at JJ. It takes him a little bit, almost like a running back in the NFL. It takes him a little bit to get a lather going, but once he does, he's left hand straight line downhill to the basket. Great balance, finishing through contact, absorbs contact, and he plays both sides of the ball. Rebounds the ball, defensive in the passing lanes, using that 7 foot wingspan. Unbelievable anticipation, understanding of leverage. He gets angles very easily. And he gets a defender on his hips and gets downhill to the basket, absorbs contact, gets to the free throw line a ton, gets those 3 points. But he's done this consistently throughout the year, throughout the AAU season, just producing. His usage is high, and his counting stats kind of follow suit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he plays a physical game. The way that he uses, like you said, the size, the length to get to his spots. It's not a lot of finesse. He's not just trying to get to step backs or find his spot and get around defense. Like he's getting to the rim or he's getting to his spot. And I think that does provide a lot of hope for what he can become. But there's still some areas that he needs to improve. Obviously, the 3 point shot, which he didn't take a lot, but he didn't knock down any of them at Peach
Yeah.
Jam. So where does his shot stand? Because we didn't get to see it at all over the course of the week.
So with his shot, he can knock down a shot if he steps into it and his feet are set. Anything off of movement, things get a little wonky. His release is a little bit low, obviously left-handed. Coming from that, and he's much more comfortable just getting downhill, getting his footwork together, gathering into a shot. Still needs a little bit of work, the balance points, and all that. Raising up his release and getting the release a little bit more consistent is there. But yeah, the shooting and the reads. Once he gets down into the paint, a lot of the reads are to go straight to the basket. Now he can make some elementary reads and all that type of stuff, but with the type of usage that he has in getting downhill, the reads and the shooting are two things that he needs to continue to take steps with, which are also, a little bit of questions as to the polarization of the long term. There's a current production that he has that is consistently high level versus what he can do against the highest level guys when everybody's, 6'5", 220 pounds. How does he kind of differentiate from that? And secondary reads and getting the jump shot in order are two ways, to kind of move toward those questions.
Yeah, and I do just want to hit on because we just talked about the consistency of competition that he's playing against. Something that I noticed in this Peach Jam, and I'm not sure how much of it is this year versus kind of the how widespread basketball on these circuits has become. You've got Adidas, you've got the Puma, you've got. I feel like it's more spread out because when I look at that Brad Beal roster and I say, all right, they won the final, I'm expecting 2, 3, 4, 5 stars to be kind of collected on one team. That's not the case here for this Brad Beal team. It was JJ Andrews and some interesting guys, some guys who are going to have college careers, but nobody else who you just point at and you say, all right, that's a guy who we're talking about. What does he become as a pro on this team? So what was the kind of the vibe like when you look at these different teams? And there are some, like we'll talk about here in a minute, the Oakland Soldiers, and of course they've got some top end talent collected together, but not all of these AAU teams necessarily focusing on getting just 4 or 5 stars collected together on these teams. It felt like this year.
Well, two guys who took huge advantages of that with Brad Bill specifically were Trey Pearson and Quentin Coleman. I think both of those guys are going to see coming up here in the next couple of weeks. Stock is going to rise, possibly into rankings and level of recruitment, taking a whole different approach. It's interesting because this Brad Bill team won the Peach Jam last year, U16. Off of that team, Jalen Mitchell was injured this year, so he wasn't playing. Obviously, a top 20 or so recruit in 27, and then Mika Burninen didn't play with them as well. So they lost they're probably two highest ranked guys across the board, and then won it again. So very interesting, very easy place for to see players step up and take control of kind of their recruitment sheet. Pearson also had an unbelievable status building type of tournament. I think you'll see that when the rankings come. Obviously, a Marquette guy. But as to your previous question, kind of the totality or the overall overarching aspect of it is this class is just down. The top end talent at this class, as you know, in our 2026 rankings right now, we have 3 5-stars.
Yeah,
we're entering into coming out of summer, entering into the high school season of their senior year, and there's only 3 5-stars in the class. And I don't even know if our updated rankings, when we do them in a couple of weeks here, if there's going to even be 3. There might even just be 2. That's just kind of the caliber at the top of the class. Now there is some depth. There's a lot of guys that you're going to be able to find. Again, guys like the Trey Pearsons and the Quentin Coleman's that keep popping up. They continue to make waves here kind of later in the process. Now we've seen a lot of the 26 guys. Cole Rosario recently. We're going to talk about a guy later, Najee Hines. Guys that are 4 stars, firmly stated 4 stars in this class that are classifying up and currently entering into college as well. So the class is diluting in that aspect as well. But just from the overall talent standpoint, and previous topics we've talked about the 2027 draft coming up. There's just not a lot. It's just not exciting. The top end guys, there's just a lot more questions and answers at the top of this class. I think that has to do now. There's 4, possibly 5 shoe circuits. Everybody's out to get their players and all this type of stuff. So dilutes the pool there as well. But when there's not a lot to pick from to start off with, and you dilute out for that, it's just not as power packed. You're not seeing Trey Young and Michael Porter Jr. type teams. You're not seeing in any of this type of power teams that we've seen in the past.
Right, for sure. And we talk about the top of this class. Tyran Stokes is he's one of those guys that is up there and has kind of put himself as the number 1 player most places that you look. When I watch him, it's very clear just looking at him. Like he looks the part. You understand, okay, this is one of the top prospects in this class just by seeing him out there on the floor. And the production seems to follow most of the time when I watch him. What doesn't always follow is the team just getting better when he goes out there on the court. We saw that with Team USA. Obviously, the Oakland Soldiers, with two top 10 players, don't make it through to the playoffs of Peach Jam. What is it that you're looking from Tyran Stokes to do to take his game to the next level? Because he's got all the physical tools. The production is off the charts in the stat book. What do you want to see him do to make that leap to be another level of prospect?
Well, I think there's a few minute things that you can pinpoint when it comes to, making the reads, a more consistent jump shot, plays off of, deceleration plays, middle game, all that type of stuff. There's specific things like that, but I think the overarching answer to that question is consistency,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of that starts with the motor. There's a lot of times that you'll watch and there's disinterest that's happening. There's a lot of times that you'll watch and it'll be ebb and flow. With a guy who's 6'7", maybe pushing 6'8", long arms, very strong, very athletic, very he's got all these physical gifts, and you don't notice him within the course of a game for 2, 3, 4 minute stretches that he's in there. So I think consistency is the big thing for him. At this point in time, he's still able just to overpower people.
Right.
He's able to get straight line downhill to the basket and make something happen. As he continues to progress, much like we were talking about with J.J. Andrews, there's going to have to be, some additions to his game when it comes to, some wiggle, when it comes to some balance points, when it comes to footwork, when it comes to shot stuff. But even for right now, when he's still able to overpower people, he doesn't always do that within the course of a game. And we've seen, we've seen what it happens when it does. Like this past week, it was very interesting with Tyran Stokes specifically when he matched up with J.J. Andrews. It was a difficult matchup for him, because J.J. is as physical as Tyran is. And J.J. ended up winning that game. But then when they played against the McCoy team without Jason Crow, the other guy on this team, Tyran was the single most dominant performance of the entire event.
Right.
He came in that back gym at 9:30 p.m. and had 30 points going into the fourth quarter. It was like 30 and 12, and it was just the most dominating performance that he had of that. So he's got it in him, and it's there. Just the consistency of figuring out his spots, jumping in, and how to dominate. As a physical specimen is I think probably the next step for him. But with that said, yes, consensus number one guy. I don't think there's anybody that's even knocking on the door. We were hoping this week going in. I was very, very, loud about asking the question and going around. I wanted to see somebody put pressure on Tyran. I want to see who was going to step up and be the guy over these last 2 weeks that's in the top 5 that's going to put pressure on Tyran at number 1. And that I don't know that necessarily happened.
Yeah, I do want to just touch quickly on his teammate, Jason Crow, before we move into that group of guys that was behind him in the rankings, but didn't necessarily push him for that number 1 spot. Crow, a volume scorer, like there's no doubt about it. This is a guy who goes out there and gets buckets. I wonder for him how much of his next step is the decision making, because when we hear about these bucket getters, we're watching it right now in the NBA. There's a list of bucket getters out there, and they're still in restricted free agency. So you look at a guy with this kind of size, he's 6'3", maybe he grows, obviously still in high school, but right now where he's at, does he need to become a little bit more point guardy, a little bit less shooting guardy to take that leap into an elite class of players?
So I don't know that necessarily that's the thing. Mm-hmm. If you can get buckets, go get buckets. It's all about creating an advantage. Obviously, as you know, the college game and the pro game differentiate. The college game is about creating advantages in your space and in the space that you're currently in.
Right.
The pro game is about creating advantages in space away from you,
yes.
And all that. So being able to create an advantage is a big thing. So with Crow, I think a lot of stuff with him is tightening the efficiency. Mm-hmm. And having his production go toward winning.
Right.
Because right now he's a volume guy. The ball stops a lot in his hands, kind of messes up the flow and momentum a lot of games. And as I mentioned before, Tyran Stokes was at his very best when Crow was sitting. Mm-hmm. He had a game against McCoy and all that where he went for 30 points going into the fourth quarter. It was just unbelievable. So that's not correlation or causation whatsoever. Yeah. That's just an observation as to what happened. But when it comes to Crow and his game, Finding efficiency within his production, I think, is the next step. I think you can very much easily. I mean, you kind of obviously he's a one of one right now, but look at
Yeah.
Robert Dillingham a couple years ago.
Hmm.
Every bit of 6'1", 170 possibly. But he's able to create that advantage consistently in an efficient manner.
Right.
That's what Crow kind of needs to do. Right now,
Mhm.
it's a little wild. It's a little willy nilly. Sure, he'll go out and get 26 points, but it's alongside no steals, no blocks, very few rebounds, very few assists, more turnovers than assists, pretty consistently, and on 24 shots.
Yeah.
So finding that consistency and being able to establish the production within an efficient manner that helps the team kind of flow more smoothly.
Yeah. And now we get into this class of players that's right there behind Tyran Stokes, but there's some separation. And like you said, you wanted to see them kind of reach out and make that push towards him. We'll start with Christian Collins because I think he's a fascinating one uh, to get a read on. Averaged almost 12 and 10 throughout the course of Peach Jam, but he's a guy who he showcases some defense. I have questions long term. Is he a wing? Does he become a little bit more of a forward? And then from there, I think that determines what path his offense needs to take. But I think there's a lot more questions on that long term than we necessarily have answers on Collins. Uh, where do you stand on that?
For sure. Watching Collins kind of progress over the past year, it's easy to see he's got every tool in the book. The
Right.
athletic fluidity, the length, the positional size. He's got a beautiful jump shot. He's able to put the ball on the floor, create advantages in that way. Now it's all about putting it together. When it comes to this past week, he had no confidence on the offensive end. There was no confidence in himself or his ability to be able to create advantages and consistently, So you left walking away kind of saying, how does he score? How does he score the basketball?
Mm-hmm.
But with that said, and you alluded to it kind of in the intro question, defensively, he was awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, he showed ability to slide his feet, move on the perimeter, switch down, got in the passing lanes, weak side shot blocking, gave great effort and a high motor with the defensive end. He showed that he can be, a pretty effective defensive player, especially moving forward as you project, learning the footwork and angles and all that type of stuff within the defensive
Yeah.
scheme. So the interest is there, and then he rebounded the heck out of the basketball. He was sticking his nose in, not afraid of the physicality and all that type of stuff. So it was a two-part question with Christian Collins, possibly a little bit overranked right now where we have him at number 3, but there's still something there, even despite not knowing how he consistently scores, even still having to answer those questions, which are major questions within a
Mm-hmm.
person's game. There's still some defensive stuff there that he showed that was very intriguing toward the long-term aspect. So possibly a lens adjustment with a little bit more improvement coming from Collins.
For sure. And then Brandon McCoy, he's the other guy, a little bit more of a guard. You get into that wing conversation, but man, when I watch Brandon McCoy, I'm excited about a 5-star level guy who is kind of hanging his hat on defense. I really like what he does defensively, and I know that doesn't always necessarily we don't think of a guy who you look at his defense and you go wow, and then he's ranked number 2 or 3 in the class. But that's where we're at right now with McCoy with Collins, and I need to see the offense kind of come along, use the athleticism that he has, the room to grow that he has is so big there, but I like the base that he provides on defense.
Sure, and kind of the exact opposite with Brandon McCoy that we saw with Christian Collins. McCoy, he won his third gold medal with USA basketball, but he was the least played person on the team.
Mm-hmm.
All that type of stuff. Coming in, there was questions. He didn't play at all in the spring, so this was his first time playing AAU, coming off of that USA basketball experience, and he was unbelievable. James, when I say unbelievable, 38 points his first game, over 24 out of 5 games he played during Peace Jam.
Yeah.
He was great. We all know he's possibly the best perimeter defender, if not the best. He's in the conversation for the best perimeter defender in the class. He can flip a game on its head on the defensive end, guard 94 feet, slide and turning a guy 3 or 4 times in the backcourt. He's really got freakish abilities on the defensive end. But his offensive ability was awesome until the last game he played when he no-showed. In that one, I think he had 4 or 6 points or so. I mean, 2 weeks coming off of USA basketball and all that stuff. I understand the tiredness and everything
Right.
too. But up until that point, 4 out of 5 games, he was over 20 points. He was electric offensively, getting to his spots. He was making some shots and everything. Now he's still going to have to continue worrying about the bottom half of his jump shooting stuff, getting into
Mm-hmm.
his set, the shot load and all of that. but he showed real offensive stuff, solidifying himself possibly as the number two overall guy in the class. Um, uh, to couple with the defensive side of the ball, long arms, 6'5", can guard all over the perimeter, plays with a purpose. But his offensive game, it was efficient. I mean, over 50%, like I said,
Right.
over 24 out of 5 games, and he was aggressive and he was electric.
Yeah. And then we get to maybe my favorite player to watch and try to figure out in this class is Jordan Smith. I like it is so unconventional. Like nothing about his game makes me go, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I can immediately comp it to this, or I can immediately like see what the role is moving forward. But it's so fun and it's so impactful. I mean, he averages 20 points, over 4 stocks per game here at Peach Jam. This, of course, after he played for Team USA and had an impact there. I mean, I look at him and I think maybe it's going to be one of these players that you just have to kind of fit into what you're doing because he's not really a point guard. He's a little bit undersized for a two, but the impact is just there night after night when I watch him.
For sure, and that's the interesting part of Jordan Smith's game. And he started all 7 games in USA basketball, won his second gold medal at U19s this summer, and then comes to Peach Jam and session 4 in Peach Jam averages, like you said, 20 a game and all that stuff. The impact is there. He's a winner, all that type of stuff. 6'1", 6'2", doesn't really make the reads as a one yet, but he's on the ball a decent amount.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't really shoot it well. At all, but he touches the paint pretty regularly, collapses a defense. He makes winning plays all over the floor. Despite the shooting aspect, he's an efficient player.
Mm-hmm.
So he's still able to find his shots. He doesn't do a lot of what he's not able to do on the floor. And he elevates the floor of a team.
Right.
There's been guys like this in the past. You have like a Cason Wallace, you have like an Avery Bradley. You have those
Mm-hmm.
type of guys that are kind of combo guards offensively who can really guard on the defensive end. It's just the thing with those two guys is the shooting aspect of it.
Yeah.
That's something that's going to have to come around with Jordan Smith, and what keeps him kind of from being in that number one spot. If Jordan Smith was a driller, if he was 40% from three, he would be in the conversation for that number one spot. There's just too much there.
Mm-hmm.
Looking past the 3 years as to his resume, as to what it is. But kind of at the 6'1", 6'2" range, that's the next step for him. But it's undeniable the impact that he has on every team that he walks on, not just his
Sure.
high school team, not just the United States basketball team, not just his AAU team.
Yeah.
Every single team he walks on, he has an immediate impact in winning.
Yeah. And that is one name, and I'll throw it out here to you. And I'm not making a direct comparison. I don't even like most of these draft comparisons that people do. Usually it ends up either too big of a star or a name that people just kind of shrug at. But
Yeah.
when I look at just the impact and I think, well, maybe he's a little bit more of a two than a one, I think of kind of later career Drew Holiday
Mm-hmm.
and how the defense was going to be there. You knew that was going to be the anchor. And yes, Drew can shoot the ball and he's kind of got that figured out. But I think long term, that might be what I would hope is Jordan Smith's kind of ceiling is that later career Drew Holiday where every team he goes to is right there in contention because they've got his combination of defense, leadership, just willingness to fill a role, all of that just into one player.
I think the last two guys we talked about are in the shades of or the archetype,
Mm-hmm.
whatever buzzword it is, where it's not one to one.
Yeah.
The shades of Brandon McCoy and Jordan Smith, I think, are in that Drew Holiday kind of archetype of a guy. Not really a point, not really a two, not really a great shooter. Major impact on the defensive end and capable of getting a team into sets on the offensive end. How they progress from here, from 17 to 18 to 19 to 20, is going
Yeah.
to go a long way to what their NBA careers, what their long-term outlooks are going to be when it comes, especially to the shooting, when it comes to being able to collapse the defense, spur the ball, doing all that. What steps do they make in these next couple of years? Because 17 is so far from a finished product. But there's a lot of natural stuff there, and I like the Drew Holiday kind of lineage. I like the Drew
Mm-hmm.
the archetype of that for both of those guys. I think that
Yeah.
that's a pathway that's very clear that they can move into and see success.
For sure. Now we move on and we got to talk about this player because I kind of laugh a little bit every time that I see you put out something on him or where you rank him in these things, because I don't think it's possible for there to be a player who, in terms of what you're doing ranking the top recruits and what I am going to do in a year or so ranking the top NBA prospects, I'm not sure there's a guy who could be further apart in where he ranks in these two, and it's Miles Sadler. Because
Okay.
man is he fun, man does he have an impact, but he's 5'10".
Yeah.
And it's just at college you can be 5'10" and you can be a star. Making that jump to the NBA has proven to be really difficult.
No, for sure. And NBA is an interesting thing, but I think if you're looking at this class as a whole, there's a couple things. There's a couple things that go into the ranking aspect of that. I was
Mm,
actually having a pretty in-depth conversation with Joe Tipton yesterday about this. He provides a nice little sounding board
yeah,
with me on my thought processes here. But there's always going to be a premium on guards, on point guards especially. They're the ones
for
that have the
sure.
ball in their hands the most. They're the ones that kind of the extension of the coach, get you in the offense, and it kind of dictates the pace of how your team plays.
Yeah,
In this class, you have just short guards. Obviously, Dylan Mingo, six
yeah,
five, long arms, and all that stuff. After him, you have Deron Rippey, you have Miles Sadler, you have Tay Kinney, you have Akeno Lozzi. All those are sub 6'2" guys,
yeah,
um, which is difficult. But what impact do they have on winning? Even looking at the college level, there's kind of a mold or a mesh there.
hmm,
That's the importance in a ranking of obviously at the very top we want to go toward an NBA draft. We want to win NBA draft night. We want our number one guy to go number one in the draft.
yeah,
Point blank, period. No qualms about that. But as you kind of get further down into the situation, typically you can account for 22 or so guys, 18 to 22 guys in every class that are going to draft and all that type of stuff. This class that we talked about, it's not quite as strong.
right.
So what type of impact are these players going to have moving forward in college? And Miles Sadler, every single step of the way, has had a massive impact. Whether it's playing for Canada basketball, whether it's playing for his high school team, where he averaged 16 a game on the EYBL circuit, his team finished second in the whole league this past year, or whether it's with AZ Unity during Peach Jam this year, he led the entire event in assists,
Yeah,
led the entire event in steals, and finished second with a 4-to-1 assist to turnover ratio.
hmm,
He affects winning. He
yeah,
makes everybody around him better, and he's fearless. Be it 5'10", you can never tell. He plays like he's 6'8". He's got unbelievable balance. He's
hmm,
got a craftiness. As a small guard, three things that you have to have. You have to be able to finish at the rim, you have to be able to shoot the ball with range, and you have to be able to guard at the point of attack.
yep,
He does all three of those. He does all three of those very well. He's crafty. He understands angles. You hear Kyrie talking about it a lot, finishing with angles at the rim, finishing with English in different spots on
hmm,
the backboard and getting it to be able to do that. I'm not by any stretch saying he's Kyrie. I'm just saying Kyrie talks about this.
right.
But he understands those angles. He gets the ball to the basket, to the rim, finishes at the basket, but he also has unbelievable vision. He collapses a defense, sprays the ball, gets them into their panic defense. And all that. So Miles Sadler is just a floor raiser for a team who can also carry the load.
For sure. And yeah, that's where sometimes I find it so interesting, kind of the difference, like you said, in you want that top guy, you want that to be the NBA draft, but once you get past 20 or so, like let's figure out who's going to be the best college players.
Yeah.
And when I look at these players, there's a lot of them in college. I mean, Zakai Ziegler, winner at Tennessee, all the way through. You look at Josh Hubbard right now at Mississippi State. I mean, that guy impacts winning as much as anyone in the college game right now. But finding that
Yeah.
NBA home is it's really really hard to do at that height nowadays.
Yeah.
But it's not to say that someone can't do it. And the kind of traits that you're talking about are what it takes if you're going to get that done. So
Mm-hmm.
we'll see how he plays out and develops over these next few years.
What was that summer league matchup the other day of the individual 5'8" guy versus 5'8" guy? The Udi from the
Yeah,
Grizzlies
Yuki
versus
Kawamura. Yeah,
yeah. And he played against somebody else who was 5'8". I can't remember who it was. But I saw that graphic going about.
yeah. Oh man, I watching small guards. It's so fun, and then you're
Yeah.
like, yeah, but if
Yeah,
you
no, the
were,
long term projection definitely
yeah,
not. But man, strap in and watch Sadler. He's
for
electric.
sure,
He's
for sure.
absolutely electricity.
Yeah,
And there's a few guards like that in this class. I mentioned them
right,
earlier. Tay Kinney, Deron Rippey, all those guys. I mean, there's an electric at the top. There's an electric set of point guards in this class.
for sure. We move now to two guys who I thought had some really good breakout years off the same team, the New York Rens team. And I want to talk about Josiah Jervis because this is a guy who's like it seems like he's going to make a big leap up the boards here after his performance over the past week or so.
For sure. He kind of does a little bit of everything that you like from a two guard. He's a connector. He's an ultimate connector. But even with that, he kind of showed that he can carry a load for a team. There's kind of a fine line in between a guy.
And we lost Jamie there for a second. We'll get him backlogged on here momentarily. But we've got Josiah Jervis who makes a big leap. But I'm going to talk real quick just while he's gone about Najai Hines because this is a guy who went out there and is a reclass. And we got Jamie back now. So tell me about Josiah Jervis and what it is about his game that's got him moving up boards.
So he's always kind of had that physical presence, 6'4", ability to handle, shoot, and pass. What he's kind of done this past AAU season is shown that he can be a play finisher. He's shown that he can be somebody you can give the ball to and he can go create something to happen. Previously, he'd been a connector, and there's somebody, there's value in both. There's somebody who can go out and finish a play. There's somebody who can extend the play, that you can give the ball to in multiple areas and kind of elevate the floor of a team. But what he showed this past, during Peace Jam, even before into the spring, through all 4 sessions of the EYBL, is that he can be a go-to guy. He utilizes his shooting. He can shoot the cover off the ball. He can also pass, and he defends. He can get on the wing. He can defend the point of attack. He can defend in space. He can defend, the wing and passing lanes. He's aggressive, good length, and all that. Great kid and everything. But he's kind of shown a diversified portfolio of his game, coming from a loaded Stepanek team, coming from a loaded team last year in AAU, to being the guy this year and leading them all the way to the finals of Peach Jam. He showed that he could be at the top of a depth chart and be the focal point and still produce numbers. Now, I'm not saying that he's going to be a focal point going forward. I'm not saying that as we look into the future that he's a go-to guy like that. But man, he has looked like a great number 2 option for a team, of somebody who can knock down shots, of somebody who can reinitiate some offense, of somebody that can guard the other team's best perimeter player as well. Yes, there's going to be a mass. He was already, I think, top 64, so maybe 55. I think we were a little bit ahead of the industry on him already. But there's going to be another pretty significant jump coming in this next update for him.
And I just want to very, very quickly here, before we get to a little bit of rapid fire on some underclassmen, I want to shout out Najee Hines and what he did this week. 13 points, that's middle of the road for the big time players there at Peach Jam, but 2.8 blocks per game, almost 10 rebounds. He led Peach Jam in performance index rating, which is kind of one of their analytics that they use, efficiency, another one of those, and plus minus. He led the entire Peach Jam in all 3 of those efficiency categories. I mean, I can see why he's reclassing to 2025 because he's not a star player, but for a guy who's going to play the big position, it feels like he's a pretty good lock to go out there and give you some productive minutes, what you need.
With him, unbelievable story with Najee Hines. I don't know if you know the backstory of him.
I do not know his backstory.
So he, at this time last year, he was a high major tight end. So he had offers from South Carolina, West Virginia, all that type of stuff as a tight end. He's here in Raleigh, which is where I'm from, and looking to go high major. He didn't even play circuit basketball or anything like that. Fast forward, he moved up to Plainfield, New Jersey, focused strictly on basketball, took off, and he became this summer. He grew to 6'10". He's every bit of 6'10", 255, whatever it is. Unbelievably soft hands coming from the tight end aspect, but he also understands leverage. He uses his lower body incredibly well around the basket, and he has great hands. All coming from the tight end aspect of his development. Became the best rebounder, in my opinion, on the EYBL circuit, and now he's going to Seton Hall.
Yeah,
unbelievable story for the kid, late bloomer, and deserving of everything that he's getting. As you mentioned, great hands in traffic. He caught everything. He finished around the basket, left hand, right hand. His developmental curve is still going up because he's been a football player.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to like there. Once he gets into shape, once he gets into basketball shape consistently, and all that, there's still some ceiling to kind of grow into with him as well. Very intrigued to see what he does in college.
And now we're gonna rapid fire here. I just want to I'm gonna give you just a few seconds to respond to each of these because we're running low on time today. But Colton Hiller, what does it mean that he played with the U17s?
Not only that he played with U17s, but he was effective.
Yeah,
He is a high level prospect. 2028 kid out of Coatesville, Pennsylvania. Always on balance. Not saying it one for one, shades of Con Knipple when it comes to his scoring aspect. Everything off of 2 feet, everything on balance, shot ready. The load looks good coming off movement, coming stepping into it or whatever the case. Still a 2028 prospect, so a ways to go there. But he had an insanely impressive week.
right. Knocked down his shots at a high level there as well. AJ Williams, he wins MVP of the 15U category. He's a stud every time I watch him.
For sure. 6'6" guy who, again, plays with incredible balance. There's nothing really flashy with his game. He's not breaking you off, getting downhill, dunking on you, or anything like that. He's effectively getting to his spots, playing off a great balance, and knocking down shots when it comes to within 3 dribbles. So there's a very streamlined game that he has at such a young age, at 6'6" or so. That you look at him in the face, he's still, still looks like he's got some room to grow and all that type of stuff. Very, very high level type of guy for his age.
And then I want to talk just real quick about a couple of 2027 guys. Of course, those some 2028 prospects. Ryan Hampton and Baba Oladoton. I can never get that one right. But those are two guys who I feel like we've been hearing about since they were probably like middle school or freshmen in high school. Where do they stand in terms of kind of their development? Are they on the path to become these 5 stars that we've kind of heard that they're going to be forever now?
Well, it's kind of hard to announce the production. Obviously, Baba playing up on 17U, Ryan Hampton just dominating 16U, just going and scoring every opportunity. They're going to have to clean up some portions of their game, namely with the footwork aspect. Baba like to see him get north south a little bit more, like to see him put more pressure on the rim, take better shots, read the game better, rebound better, do all that type of stuff. Ryan Hampton's aggressive as all get out. He gets downhill to the basket with the purpose of getting points on the board. So both of them had positive stuff with their games. They are continuing to grow.
Yep. And then CJ Rosser, he's kind of in that mix as well now at the top of the 27 class. What did he do at Peach Jam? Did he stand out at all there?
Absolutely. He's a fascinating prospect because at his size, his shooting touch, his ability to score the basketball is very unique for a guy his age, his size, and all that type of stuff. He's going to have to round out his game when it comes to self creation, when it comes to defense, rebounding, all that type of stuff. Very thin, but at 6'9", 6'10", his ability to kind of score the ball at all 3 levels, his ability to flash off ball, get into the paint, and kind of make plays and stuff. He's got a well-rounded game. He also showed some mid post stuff. Posting up in the mid block and making shots is there. It was a very intriguing game, but he's got a well-rounded offensive game. Will only get stronger as he continues to get stronger in his base and footwork continues to improve. But rounding out his game is going to be the next. Rounding out, self-creation, rounding out the defensive end and all that.
For sure. Thank you, Jamie, for coming on here. Always great to talk basketball with you, to get more insight on these prospects, learn more about their game, what they have in their bag, what they need to continue working on. We'll catch up with you here soon. We'll talk a little bit more recruiting. We are in the dead middle of the off season. It feels like we're searching for content, and Peach Jam obviously provided that for us. But thank you once again for coming on and talking basketball.
Awesome, James. I appreciate it, and this is always welcome.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Want to thank Jamie Shaw once again for coming on the show. Always so much insight we get from him, scouting these players and learning more about what our teams and what we as fans are getting into each time that we watch them. Coming up over the next few weeks, we are going to have a series to unpack for you guys. We are going to go ahead and utilize this opportunity in the offseason. We are going to rank the top coaches conference by conference. It'll probably be every other week that they will release, starting next week and then running over the course of about a month. We'll do the ACC first, then we'll do the Big 12. We'll go to the SEC and then the Big 10. So if you care about one team, one conference, be sure to tune in for that conference. But I encourage you, listen through all of them. We're going to talk through the standings of each of these conferences. These are the power conferences in college sports. And so, having an understanding of where all of these coaches sit, of course, benefits everyone, whether you're worried about non conference matchups or NCAA tournament down the line. There is a lot to learn. So, stick right here with us at Three True Values. We are getting you through the offseason. We got plenty more content to unpack before we hit the preseason, where, of course, we will have our conference breakdowns as always. We'll bring in guests, have a lot of fun with that over the next few months in this process as we wait for college basketball to return. It'll be here before you know it. This is the time of year where things start flying through. We're in kind of the heart of the offseason in all sports, not just college basketball, but that means that the start is just around the corner. We'll be back next week, as I said, right here on Three True Values. Thank you once again for tuning in.